The first human city fell in seconds. Then the second, the third, the fourth. A dozen more blasted into rubble from orbit by merciless alien weapons no defense could stop. This was the day everyone on Proxima Colony knew would come, the day the Nausicaans found them. Reports of their conquest echoed from across the stars. The Volux, crushed in days, the Urkot, annihilated, the Krovians, butchered. Hundreds of worlds, trillions dead or enslaved by the most feared military machine the galaxy had ever seen. Nausicaan hover tanks, plasma cannons, and gene-forged shock troops had overrun every civilization they targeted. None had ever survived. Proxima Colony was to be next. As drop pods rained from the skies like meteors and disgorged Nausicaan warriors onto blood-soaked soil, one man led a ragged band of survivors into the labyrinth of collapsed buildings and crater-scarred streets. His name was Joshua Carter, an old warhorse of a dozen battles who'd hoped he'd never see another. Now he fought for time as civilians scrambled for the bunkers, for just one more minute, just one more life saved. High above Proxima's orbit, Nausicaan Fleet Commander Merrick watched the slaughter impassively from the bridge of his mighty warship. This farce of a battle bored him already. Did every species cower so pathetically before their betters? How he wished some upstart race would offer him a real challenge for once. The initial reports of stiff human resistance barely registered. But then more reports came in, of Nausicaan advances blunted by ferocious defenders melting back into the ruins, of enemy vehicles hijacked and turned on their masters, of shocking casualties to elite Nausicaan units. The humans, it seemed, refused to die quietly. This Joshua Carter and his ilk fought like cornered vermin with anything at hand, and they were winning. As word spread of the escalating disaster on Proxima's surface, Merrick felt something utterly alien squirm in his gut. Fear, cold and vile, leaked into his veins. The human resistance was doing the impossible. And if they prevailed here, the Nausicaan war machine might face its first true threat. This wasn't just a battle for one colony. This was a war for galactic dominance. And against all odds, against an unstoppable force that had never known defeat, humanity would stand, fight, and show the Nausicaans they'd never faced anything like them before. The battle for the galaxy's future had only begun. As the Nausicaans reeled from their shocking defeats, Joshua Carter pressed the advantage. His soldiers struck like lightning from the rubble, ambushing the aliens at every turn. The invaders' hover tanks lay burning in the streets, picked apart by salvaged human weapons. Carter crouched behind the twisted wreckage of an APC, listening to Alex Novak's crackling voice over the comms. "I'm in their network, feeding you intel now." A schematic flickered to life on Carter's wrist screen, detailing Nausicaan troop movements. He grinned wolfishly. The aliens had no idea what hit them. "All units converge on Grid Square Alpha 6, Carter ordered. "We're going to introduce our new friends to an old human specialty, the art of the ambush." Across Proxima Colony and a dozen other worlds, humanity clawed its way back from the brink. Nausicaan forces reeled as human resistance cells struck with devastating precision, guided by hacked alien intel. The invaders' superior technology crumpled beneath human tenacity and cunning. In his warship above, Commander Merrick seethed as reports flooded in of disastrous defeats. The humans were like no foe he'd ever faced, striking without fear or mercy. How could such a primitive species resist the unstoppable Nausicaan onslaught? "Burn their cities to ash," Merrick snarled to his subordinates. "Unleash the nerve gas, scorch the earth until nothing remains but glass." But even orbital bombardments and chemical weapons failed to cow humanity's indomitable spirit. As mushroom clouds swelled over ruined cities, Carter and his soldiers fought on, determined to make the aliens bleed for every inch of conquered soil. Then a flicker of hope, whispers of an enigmatic alien race called the Silith, ancient enemies of the Nausicaans, quietly aiding the human resistance. Advanced weapons and intel filtered down to Carter's troops from unknown benefactors. For the first time, the impossible seemed within reach. But even as humanity rallied, a desperate Nausicaan gambit threatened to shatter the resistance. In a daring raid, alien commandos breached the heavily guarded compound of General Elena Cortez, the architect of Earth's defenses. As news of Cortez's capture spread, grim silence fell over the resistance. The general held the keys to humanity's plans, to the Scytheth's shadowy aid. In Nausicaan hands, she could doom them all. Carter pursed his lips as he absorbed the intelligence. Cortez was aboard Marique's orbiting flagship, beyond the reach of any human force. A rescue mission was utter suicide. He checked his weapon and slotted in a fresh magazine. Around him, the grim faces of his soldiers said they already knew his intentions. One way or another, this war would end soon. Humanity had bloodied the Nausicaans for the first time in galactic history. Now it was time to face them, head-on, to stake everything on a final fateful gamble. The battle for the galaxy's future would be decided in the cold void of space, where only the strong survived. Carter's eyes narrowed as he studied the holographic display of Marique's orbiting flagship. The behemoth loomed impossibly large, jam-packed with weapons that could vaporize entire cities. "It's a death trap," he muttered. "Then it's a good thing we brought the right tools for the job," a gruff voice replied. Carter spun to face the speaker, a tall, scarred man whose very presence seemed to fill the room. The newcomer's tactical gear bore no insignia, but the way he carried himself spoke volumes. "Captain Marcus Reese," the man said, extending a calloused hand. "My ghosts are at your disposal." As Reese laid out his infiltration plan, Carter felt a glimmer of hope. It was audacious, borderline insane, but it just might work. Hours later, Carter found himself crammed into a stolen Nausicaan shuttle with Reese, Novak, and a handful of elite operatives. The cargo bay of Merrick's flagship yawned before them, a maw of steel and shadows. "Now, Novak," Carter whispered. Alex's fingers flew across his hollow interface, weaving digital magic. Alarms fell silent, security feeds looped harmlessly. They slipped inside like ghosts. The team moved with fluid precision through the labyrinthine corridors. Every step brought them closer to Cortez and to springing Merrick's trap. They reached the detention level. Carter's pulse quickened as he saw the general through the force field of her cell. Her eyes widened in recognition, then narrowed in warning. Too late. The air shimmered as cloaking fields dropped. Obsidian-armored warriors materialized, energy weapons thrumming to life. "Carter, look out!" Novak shouted, shoving his commander aside as a plasma bolt seared the air. The hacker crumpled, a smoking hole in his chest. The world exploded into chaos. Carter and Reese fought back-to-back, their weapons spitting death. But for every Nausicaan that fell, two more seemed to take its place. "We're cut off!" Reese roared over the din. "No way back to the shuttle." Cortez's voice cut through the firefight. "I have a way out, but you're not going to like it." She produced a small device, pulsing with otherworldly energy. "Scythe tech," she explained. "It'll create a temporary singularity. Big enough to punch through the hull, small enough not to destroy the system. Probably." Carter hesitated for a split second, then nodded grimly. "Do it." Reality twisted. Space itself screamed as a miniature black hole tore through the flagship. Alarm klaxons wailed. Carter felt himself being pulled towards the warped section of hull, fighting against the singularity's inexorable pull. They tumbled through the breach, the void of space yawning beneath them. A Nausicaan shuttle hung nearby, its pilot frozen in shock. Reese didn't hesitate. His grappling line found purchase, and they swung into the alien craft's open hatch. As they sped away from the crippled flagship, Carter watched in awe as the singularity's effects spread. Nausicaan ships flickered and vanished, consumed by localized space-time anomalies. Others crumpled like tin cans, crushed by gravitational forces beyond comprehension. Amidst the chaos, escape pods blossomed from the dying vessels. On one, Carter caught a glimpse of a familiar face. Commander Merrick, his features twisted in fury and disbelief. The shuttle's comms crackled to life with panicked Nausicaan transmissions. Their carefully cultivated aura of invincibility lay shattered among the starfield. Carter's grip tightened on the controls. They'd won this battle, but at a terrible cost. Alex Novak's absence left a palpable void, and in the stunned silence of the cockpit, Carter knew the war was nowhere near the end. As they limped towards the nearest resistance stronghold, Cortez's words hung heavy in the air. We've given humanity a fighting chance. Now comes the hard part. The shuttle's engines whined as Carter guided it through Proxima's atmosphere, the planet's ravaged surface coming into focus. Reese's grim features softened for a moment as he gazed at their homeworld. "Never thought I'd be happy to see this mudball again," he muttered. As they touched down at the Resistance stronghold, a crowd gathered. Cortez was out first, her presence electrifying the assembled troops. Carter hung back, his mind on Alex Novak's sacrifice. "We mourn later," Reese said, clapping him on the shoulder. "Right now, we've got a war to win." In the command center, holographic displays flickered to life, showing the state of the conflict across multiple systems. The Nausicaan invasion force was in disarray, their carefully laid plans shattered by the singularity crisis. Cortez wasted no time. "This is our chance. We hit them hard, we hit them fast, and we don't let up." She outlined a bold strategy, leveraging their newfound Psilith tech and the enemy's confusion. Carter found himself nodding along, a fire kindling in his chest. "I want boots on the ground on Karak within 48 hours, Cortez said, fixing Carter with a steel gaze. "Take that fortress and everything in it." Carter's mind raced, tactical possibilities unfolding. "We'll need armor support, air cover." "You'll have it," Cortez cut him off. "Just get it done." As the meeting adjourned, an unfamiliar face approached, a lanky man with wild hair and dark-ringed eyes. He extended a hand to Carter. "Luke Renner, they call me Farsight." Recognition dawned. "The hacker! I've heard whispers." Renner's eyes gleamed. "More than whispers soon. My graybeards are about to make the Nausicaans' lives very interesting." Carter raised an eyebrow. "How so?" "Let's just say their BattleNet is going to have a very bad day." The assault on Karak unfolded like a work of art. Carter watched from the command deck of a repurposed Nausicaan dropship as human armor columns punched through weakened enemy lines. On his tactical display, Nausicaan units blinked red, then vanished as coordinated strikes took them out. "Renner's hackers are worth their weight in gold," Reese's voice crackled over the comm. "These bastards can't tell which way is up." The fortress loomed ahead, a brutal slab of alien architecture. Carter tensed, waiting for the inevitable barrage of defensive fire. It never came. "Their systems are ours," Renner's smug voice announced. "I'm opening the gates. You're welcome." Inside the captured stronghold, Carter pored over the intel they'd seized. Fleet deployments, supply routes, command protocols. A treasure trove that would cripple Nausicaan operations across multiple sectors. But it was the cultural transmissions Cortez had prepared that truly turned the tide. Across occupied worlds, the oppressed masses saw images of human resilience, heard stories of defiance against tyranny. The spark of rebellion ignited. On Endor, Reese's ghost melted into lush forests, striking Nausicaan outposts with surgical precision. Supply convoys went up in flames. Communication relays fell silent. The invaders' grip on the verdant world loosened with each passing day. Nausicaan High Command descended into chaos. Intercepted transmissions revealed increasingly panicked and contradictory orders. Some commanders refused to engage, spooked by the specter of human ingenuity. The offensive seemed unstoppable until news came of Supreme Warlord Krakaz's daring plan. Bioweapons aimed at human population centers. A final, monstrous solution. Carter's blood ran cold as he received the transmission from Lieutenant Marcus Stanton of Battlegroup Ring 235. The man's voice was calm, almost serene, as he detailed his suicidal plan to stop the atrocity. "Someone has to do it," Stanton said simply. "See you on the other side, Carter." The feed cut out. Minutes later, reports flooded in of a massive explosion on Tau Ceti 5. The bioweapon facility was dust, along with Stanton and his entire crew. In the stunned silence that followed, Carter felt the weight of command settle heavily on his shoulders. He keyed his comm, broadcasting to all resistance forces. "You've all heard what happened at Tau Ceti. Lieutenant Stanton and the brave souls of Ring 235 gave everything so that millions might live. Now it's our turn. We push forward, we give no quarter, and we show these Nausicaan bastards what happens when you back humanity into a corner. Across a dozen worlds, the oppressed masses rose up. Alien races long ground under the Nausicaan boot found common cause with their human liberators. The tide of history turned. As reports of Nausicaan retreats flooded in, Carter allowed himself a grim smile. They'd bloodied the invaders' nose, shattered their aura of invincibility. But he knew the real fight was just beginning. In the void of space, battered Nausicaan ships limped away from human-controlled systems. But Carter's sensors picked up troubling readings from the galactic core, massive energy signatures unlike anything they'd encountered. Whatever was coming, humanity would be ready. Ready. Carter's eyes narrowed as he studied the holographic display of Krios 9. The massive ring world dwarfed even the largest Nausicaan vessels, its scale almost beyond comprehension. "That's our target," Cortez said, her voice steely. "Take it out and we cripple their ability to replenish their fleets." Carter nodded, his mind already racing through tactical possibilities. "It's heavily defended. We'll need something unconventional to even get close." "That's where we come in," a silky voice interjected. Carter turned to face the speaker, a tall, lithe figure with iridescent skin and eyes that seemed to hold galaxies. The Silith known as Shara. "Our stealth technology will get you past their outer defenses," Shara continued. "From there, it's up to you and your team to reach the reactor core." Hours later, Carter found himself crammed into a boarding torpedo with Reese and a handful of ghost operatives. The confined space hummed with nervous energy as they hurtled towards Krios 9's outer hull. Impact, the torpedo's nose crumpled, breaching the ringworld's skin. They spilled out into sterile corridors, weapons at the ready. "Move fast, stay low," Carter ordered. "We've got a long way to go." They encountered resistance almost immediately. Zorgak's security drones swarmed from side passages, their energy weapons leaving scorch marks on the walls. Carter's team responded with precision fire, dropping the machines in heaps of sparking metal. As they pushed deeper into the facility, the opposition grew fiercer. Armored Zorgak's troops joined the fray, backed by lumbering war mechs that shrugged off conventional fire. "Shara!" Carter called out as a mech's plasma cannon reduced a nearby column to slag. "We need an edge!" The Silith warrior stepped forward, raising a device that pulsed with otherworldly energy. A wave of distortion rippled outward. The mech froze, its circuitry scrambled. "Not bad," Reese grunted, putting a burst through the disabled machine's viewports. They fought their way through construction bays large enough to house capital ships, past half-assembled cruisers and fighters. The reactor core lay ahead, guarded by the heaviest concentration of Zorgak's forces yet. "This is it," Carter said, checking his depleted weapon. "One final push." He locked eyes with Shara. The Silith nodded, producing a small, innocuous-looking cylinder. "Remember," Shara cautioned, "once activated, nothing will stop the reaction." Carter took the nanite warhead, its weight seeming to carry the fate of humanity. He turned to his battered team. "Let's finish this." They surged forward into a maelstrom of weapons fire. Carter felt the sting of near misses, saw comrades fall. But step by bloody step, they advanced. At last, the reactor loomed before them, a pulsing heart of barely contained energy. Carter slammed the warhead against its housing, feeling the activation sequence begin. "Time to go," he roared. They retreated through dwindling Zorgak's resistance, the entire structure beginning to vibrate ominously. Alarms wailed as they piled into the waiting assault landers. From the relative safety of space, Carter watched in awe as Krios 9 dissolved. The mighty ring world crumbled into a shimmering cloud of nanites, spreading outward to consume nearby Zorgak's vessels. Aboard the human flagship Leviathan, Cortez's voice crackled over the comm. "Well done, Carter. You've given us a fighting chance." As the remnants of the Zorgak's fleet scattered, Carter allowed himself a moment of grim satisfaction. But his eyes were drawn to the strange energy readings from the galactic core. Whatever came next, humanity would face it together. The energy readings from the galactic core intensified, resolving into a chilling reality. Supreme Warlord Krakaz had not been idle in the wake of his defeats. Intelligence reports flooded in, painting a grim picture of Zorgak's forces massing in the Kepler system. Carter's tactical display lit up with urgent priority markers. He zoomed in on a massive structure taking shape around Kepler's second moon, a dimensional rift generator. "Cortez, are you seeing this?" Carter's voice was tight. "I am," she replied, her tone grim. "If they activate that thing, it's game over for every human-controlled system." Carter's mind raced through potential strategies, each more desperate than the last. "We need to hit them hard and fast before they can bring that monstrosity online." Cortez's image nodded on the holo display. "Agreed. I'm mobilizing everything we've got. You'll lead the vanguard with Ghost Squadron." Hours later, Carter found himself aboard the stealth corvette Shadow Dancer, surrounded by the battle-hardened faces of his ghost operatives. Reese double-checked his gear, a familiar pre-mission ritual. "So, we're really doing this," Reese muttered, "taking on the entire Zorgak's armada with a handful of ships." Carter clapped his old friend on the shoulder. "Not alone. We've got some new friends joining the party." As if on cue, a shimmering distortion appeared off their port bow. The sleek form of a Scythe vessel materialized, its hull seeming to drink in the starlight. Shara's familiar voice crackled over the comms. "Ready when you are, Joshua Carter." The Vanguard fleet dropped out of slipspace at the edge of the Kepler system. Immediately, Carter's tactical display lit up with hundreds of enemy contacts. The Zorgaks had prepared a formidable defensive screen. "Ghost Squadron, form up," Carter ordered. "We're punching a hole for the main fleet." What followed was a series of lightning strikes against Zorgak's outposts and patrol groups. The Shadow Dancer and its sister ships danced between energy beams and missile salvos, striking with pinpoint accuracy before melting back into the void. With each engagement, the Scythe revealed new facets of their otherworldly technology. Shara's vessel projected holographic decoys indistinguishable from real ships, sowing chaos in Zorgak's formations. Other Scythe craft fired beams that seemed to phase enemy vessels partially out of reality, leaving them crippled and drifting. As they pushed deeper into the system, Carter received a transmission from an unexpected source. Luke Renner's face appeared on the holo display, his eyes glinting with manic energy. "Cavalry's arrived," the hacker announced. "My graybeards are having a field day with their systems. You should see the garbage we're feeding into their targeting computers." True to Renner's word, the next Zorgak's battle group they encountered seemed to be firing at phantom targets, their formation in disarray. Carter's ghost tore through them with ruthless efficiency. The path to Kepler's second moon lay open, but time was running short. Energy readings from the rift generator were spiking ominously. Carter knew they had to act fast. "Cortez, we've cleared you a corridor," he reported. "Bring in the main fleet. We'll start our attack run on the generator." As Cortez's armada poured into the system, Carter's strike team made their approach. The rift generator loomed before them, a titanic structure crackling with almost unchecked energies. Surrounding it was the cream of the Zorgak's fleet, including Krakaz's personal dreadnought. "This is it," Carter addressed his team. "We board that generator and shut it down, or there won't be a home to go back to. Let's make it count." The Shadow Dancer's hull shuddered as Zorgak's point defenses opened up. Carter gritted his teeth, guiding the ship through a storm of fire towards their target. A blinding flash lit up the view screen as a Scythe vessel intercepted a barrage meant for them, disintegrating in a spectacular explosion. They were almost to the generator's main docking bay when a gravitational anomaly seized the Shadow Dancer, yanking it off course. Carter's stomach lurched as artificial gravity fluctuated wildly. "Krakaz is using the generator's power to create localized gravity wells." Shara's voice crackled over the comms. "We can't get closer." Carter's mind raced, searching for a solution. Then he saw it, a Zorgak's frigate, caught in the same anomaly, drifting towards the generator's hull. "Reese," he barked, "prep for emergency EVA. We're jumping ship." Moments later, Carter found himself hurtling through the void, the tether of his grappling guns stretching towards the Zorgak's vessel. He landed hard on its hull, magnetic boots engaging. Around him, ghost operatives and Scythe warriors materialized from their own vessels. As one, they charged across the alien hull towards a breaching point. Carter's plasma cutter made short work of the airlock. They were in. The generator's interior was a maze of twisting corridors and pulsing energy conduits. Carter led his team deeper, guided by Shara's esoteric sensors. They encountered sporadic resistance, security drones, and the occasional Zorgax patrol, but nothing like the opposition Carter had expected. His unease grew as they neared the central nexus. This was too easy. The massive doors to the nexus chamber hissed open, revealing a cavernous space dominated by a swirling vortex of impossible energies. And there, waiting for them, stood Supreme Warlord Krakaz himself, flanked by the jet-black armor of his Obsidian Guard. "Welcome, Joshua Carter," the Zorgax leader's voice boomed. "I've been expecting you." Carter raised his weapon, but Krakaz merely laughed, a sound like grinding metal. "Oh, I think not," the warlord sneered. "You see, you're already too late." With a gesture, Krakaz activated the rift generator. Reality itself seemed to scream as the vortex expanded, threatening to consume everything. Carter's mind raced. They had failed. Humanity was doomed. Unless... He turned to Shara, a desperate plan forming. "Your quantum tech. Can you shield us?" The Silith's eyes widened in understanding and fear. "I can," she said softly, "but the cost..." There was no time for debate. The rift was growing exponentially. Shara's hands moved in intricate patterns, weaving strands of subspace. A shimmering bubble expanded outward, enveloping Carter, his team, and many of the Allied ships beyond. The last thing Carter saw before the bubble sealed was Shara's sad smile. Then the rift generator detonated, and the universe outside ceased to exist. The quantum bubble shimmered, then vanished, leaving Carter and his team adrift in an empty void where Kepler's moon had once been. Silence reigned for a moment before the comms crackled to life. "Ghost Squadron, report status!" Cortez's voice cut through the shock. Carter's eyes swept the starfield, searching for any sign of Shara or her vessel. Nothing. "We're operational," he managed. "The Zorgax fleet is gone. So is the rift generator." "And Shara?" Reese's question hung in the air. Carter's teeth gritted. "No sign. She saved us all." In the days that followed, the magnitude of their victory became clear. The Zorgax invasion force lay in ruins, its leadership decapitated. Human ships moved through the system, rounding up stragglers and securing strategic assets. But Carter found no joy in the triumph. He prowled the decks of the Leviathan like a caged animal, poring over sensor logs and subspace scans. Shara was out there somewhere, trapped in a bubble of warped spacetime. He would find her. "You need rest, Joshua," Cortez said, concern etching her features as she found him hunched over a console in the small hours of the ship's night cycle. Carter didn't look up. "What I need is to crack this quantum signature. If I can isolate the subharmonic resonance..." Cortez's hand on his shoulder stopped him. "We won, thanks to you. To her. Don't throw that away." He met her gaze, seeing the weight of command in her eyes. "You're right," he conceded, "but I can't give up on her." "I'm not asking you to," Cortez replied, "but we have work to do. The Zorgax still hold dozens of worlds. Our people need you out there, not obsessing over quantum theory." Carter nodded, knowing she was right. He allowed himself a few hours of fitful sleep before suiting up for the next phase of the war. The mission to Tartarus V came weeks later. Carter led Ghost Squadron through the neon-lit canyons of the Zorgax Citadel, plasma bolts sizzling past. They weaved between towering structures of black metal and pulsing energy conduits. "Governor's compound ahead," Reese called out, ducking behind a fallen war mech. "Heavy resistance." Carter's mind flashed to the quantum equations he'd been working on. If he could just... focus. He pushed the thoughts aside, centering himself in the moment. "Breach charges," he ordered. "We go in hot." The explosion rocked the street. Ghost Squadron poured through the gap, encountering a wall of Zorgax defenders. Carter's particle rifle spat death, dropping 2 hulking warriors in rapid succession. But the enemy kept coming. Waves of security drones swarmed overhead. Carter felt the familiar tightness in his chest. They were about to be overrun. A deafening roar split the air. Carter whirled to see a squad of Zorgak's elites, attacking their own forces. Leading them was a lithe figure, moving with deadly grace. "Humans!" the warrior called out. "I am Kalara. We fight with you now." Carter hesitated for a split second, then nodded. "Cover our flank. We're headed for the governor." With Kalara's rebels evening the odds, they fought their way to the central chamber. The Tartarus governor cowered behind a force field, surrounded by his personal guard. "It's over," Carter declared, weapon leveled. "Surrender and spare your people further bloodshed." The governor's eyes darted between Carter and Kalara. "Traitor!" he snarled at the female Zorgaks. "You betray your entire species." Kalara stepped forward, her voice filled with conviction. "No, I honor the true way of our people, the way of the warrior, not the conqueror." More Zorgaks threw down their weapons, joining Kalara's side. The force field flickered and died as the generators were sabotaged from within. As they led the captured governor to a waiting dropship, Carter turned to Kalara. "Why?" he asked simply. Her alien features arranged themselves into what might have been a smile. "Because you showed us something we had forgotten. The strength that comes from fighting for one's home, not another's glory." Carter nodded, a newfound respect kindling. But as the adrenaline faded, his thoughts turned once more to Shara, lost in the quantum void. He would find a way to bring her back, no matter the consequences. Carter's eyes snapped open, his mind jarred from quantum calculations by the insistent blare of alarms. Red emergency lighting bathed the Leviathan's bridge in an eerie glow. "Report!" he barked, striding to the tactical display. Commander Reese's face appeared on the main view screen, his expression grim. "Sir, we've lost contact with Sigma Draconis. The entire system just vanished." Carter's blood ran cold. He had authorized the deployment of an experimental singularity weapon as a last resort against a massive Zorgak's fleet, but the magnitude of destruction was beyond anything they had anticipated. "Confirmed, Admiral," the sensor officer announced. "Long-range scans show expanding gravitational anomaly where Sigma Draconis used to be." The bridge fell silent as the implication sank in. They had stopped the Zorgak's advance, but at what cost? "We did what was necessary," Carter said, his voice steady despite the turmoil in his gut. "Now we deal with the aftermath." But the aftermath proved far more complex than any of them could have imagined. Within days, encrypted transmissions flooded in from across Allied space. Colonial governors, frightened by the destructive power now at humanity's disposal, demanded oversight and accountability. Carter found himself summoned to the newly christened throne world of Byzantium. The gleaming spires of its capital seemed to mock the weight on his shoulders as he strode into the chambers of the coalition of free systems. President Ellen Rana, her silver hair coiled in an elaborate style, fixed Carter with an unwavering focus. "Admiral, your actions at Sigma Draconis have raised concerns." "With all due respect, Madam President," Carter began, "we faced an existential threat. The Zorgaks—" Rana cut him off with a wave of her hand. "The threat has been neutralized. Now we must ensure the cure doesn't become worse than the disease." He recognized the political maneuvering for what it was, a power play. Rana was consolidating control, and Carter's influence stood in her way. "Your fleet is to remain in orbit around Byzantium until further notice," Rana declared, "and I'm recalling key advisors to assist with restructuring." Carter's expression resolute as he saw Shara among the Silith representatives being ushered into a secure briefing room. He opened his mouth to protest, but the glint in Rana's eye told him it would be futile. As he returned to the Leviathan, Carter's mind raced. Something about this felt wrong, beyond mere politics. He needed answers. "Reese," he calmed his old friend, "meet me in my quarters. Secure channel." Hours later, surrounded by Ghost Squadron's most trusted members, Carter laid out what he had uncovered. Fragments of encrypted Silith communications, anomalous energy readings from their ships, discrepancies in battle reports, all pointed to a chilling conclusion. "They've been playing us," Carter said, his voice low. "The Silith. This war, our technological leaps, it's all been orchestrated." Reese leaned forward, brow furrowed. To what end? I'm not certain, Carter admitted, but there's something out there that scares them. Something beyond the Zorgax, and they're shaping us to fight it. The room erupted in heated discussion. Some argued for confronting the Silith directly, others for severing ties completely. Carter raised a hand for silence. We can't act rashly, he cautioned, but we also can't allow ourselves to be puppets in someone else's war. We need allies we can trust. Over the following weeks, Carter's inner circle worked tirelessly. They reached out to sympathetic colonial governors, military officers who shared their suspicions, even a few Zorgax defectors like Kalara who had come to respect humanity's resilience. As this shadow network took shape, the first cracks in the uneasy peace began to show. Reports trickled in of Zorgax activity on the fringes of known space, no longer the disorganized remnants of a broken empire, but coordinated strikes that left entire outposts as little more than expanding clouds of debris. Then came the distress call that changed everything. New Corsica, a CFS colony, transmitted a single terrifying message before all contact was lost. Massive fleet like nothing we've seen, tearing reality itself. The feed cut to static, replaced moments later by long-range sensor data. Where New Corsica's star system had been, a gaping maw of twisted space-time now yawned. And at its heart, a Zorgax armada unlike any they had faced before. Carter knew the time for caution had passed. He opened a direct channel to President Rana's office, even as he signaled Ghost Squadron to prep for immediate deployment. "Madam President," he said, his voice carrying the weight of command, "we have a new problem." "Threat, I'm mobilizing Ghost Squadron." Rana's hologram flickered, her eyes narrowing. "You have no authority." "With respect, Madam President, we don't have time for bureaucracy," Carter interrupted. "New Corsica is gone, completely, and whatever did it is coming our way." As if on cue, alarms blared across the Leviathan. Lieutenant Zhang's voice cut through the chaos. "Sir, massive spatial distortions detected. It's tearing through subspace." Carter's blood ran cold as the tactical display lit up. A swarm of red icons poured through a gaping wound in reality itself. At its center, a colossal vessel that defied description, its form seeming to shift and twist with each passing second. "By the Founders," Rana whispered, her political mask slipping. "This is beyond us," Carter said grimly. "We need to pool every resource we have." Rana nodded, her stance softening. "Agreed. I'm authorizing full deployment of the Coalition fleet. What's your plan, Admiral?" Carter's mind raced, piecing together fragments of intel. This has to be connected to what the Silith were preparing us for. We need Shara. As if summoned by his words, a shimmering portal materialized on the bridge. Shara stepped through, her form wavering as if not fully anchored to this reality. "Joshua," she said, her voice echoing strangely, "it's time." Carter turned to Rana's hologram. "Madame President, I need you to gather every allied force we have. Buy us time." Rana's image vanished, replaced by a tactical overlay of the expanding anomaly. At its heart, Carter could now make out the monstrous form of a Zorgax dreadnought, but twisted and augmented beyond recognition. "Zora the Obliterator," Shara intoned. "He seeks to collapse all realities into a singularity under his control." "How do we stop him?" Carter demanded. Shara's eyes glowed with an otherworldly light. "We have prepared a weapon, a reality anchor powered by the very essence of human defiance. But to deploy it—" "Let me guess," Reese said, stepping onto the bridge. "Suicide mission?" Carter nodded grimly. "Looks that way, old friend. You up for one last run?" Reese grinned, the old fire igniting in his eyes. "Wouldn't miss it for all the universes." As Coalition and Renegade forces alike poured from slip space, Carter felt a strange calm settle over him. The weight of command, of divided loyalties, fell away. There was only the mission. "Go Squadron," he ordered. "Prep for deployment. We're going in." The Leviathans shuddered as reality itself seemed to scream around them. Through the maelstrom of collapsing space-time, Carter could see the nightmarish form of Zora's flagship. It pulsed with energies that made his eyes water, surrounded by swarms of reality-warping machines. "This is it," Carter said, his voice steady. "For humanity, for all realities. Ghost Squadron, launch!" Launch! Carter's order was drowned out by a deafening roar as reality itself tore apart around them. The Leviathan shuddered, hull plates screaming under impossible stresses. Through viewports warped by gravitational lensing, Carter watched as the Allied fleet engaged Zora's nightmarish armada. A blinding flash erupted from the heart of the maelstrom. Carter's eyes watered, his mind struggling to process the cosmic forces at play. When his vision cleared, he found himself sprawled on the deck, alarms blaring. "Status report," he croaked, pulling himself to his feet. Silence. The bridge was empty save for one other figure slowly rising. President Rana, her silver hair now streaked with ash, met his gaze with wide eyes. "Joshua," she whispered, "what happened?" Carter's fingers flew across the nearest console, bringing up sensor readings that made no sense. Where moments ago a pitched battle had raged, now there was nothing. No Allied fleet, no Zorgax armada, just a warped, kaleidoscopic vista of twisted star systems and quantum foam. "I think," Carter said slowly, "we won and lost, simultaneously." A shimmering distortion coalesced beside them. Shara's form flickered into view, less substantial than ever. "The singularity nexus destabilized," she explained, her voice echoing as if from a great distance. "All realities reset. You are the only survivors." Carter's mind reeled. "Ghost Squadron? Reese!" Shara's form wavered, scattered, fractured across dimensional boundaries, but not gone, not yet. Rana stepped forward, her political mask falling away to reveal raw persistence. "Then we find them. We rebuild." Carter nodded, a plan already forming. "The Leviathan's nanoforges. We can use them to seed outposts, gather survivors." "More than that," Shara interjected. "You must transcend. Become living ideas to face what comes next." "What comes next?" Rana asked. Shara's form began to dissipate. "The Blight, the true enemy, the Silith prepared you for this. You must ascend." With a final flicker, she vanished. Carter and Rana stood in silence, gazing out at the malleable cosmic tapestry surrounding them. Faint whispers seemed to echo from the void, anguished souls adrift in dimensional turmoil. "Well, Madam President," Carter said grimly, "looks like we've got work to do." Rana's eyes hardened with commitment. "I don't think those titles mean much anymore, Admiral. Call me Ellen." "Joshua," he replied with a nod. "Let's get started." Over the following weeks, if such a concept still held meaning, they worked tirelessly. The Leviathan's fabricators hummed ceaselessly, constructing quantum-entangled beacons. These reality anchor hubs provided islands of stability in the chaotic sea of spacetime. As the network expanded, they began to detect faint signals. Survivors, adrift in pocket realities or clinging to fragments of dead worlds. Carter and Rana brought them aboard, one by one. Soldiers, scientists, dreamers. Each carried the spark of human defiance, even in the face of cosmic upheaval. Shara's warning echoed in Carter's mind as he addressed the first group of recruits. "What we face cannot be fought with guns or ships," he explained. "We must become more. We must transcend our physical forms and become living ideas." The training was grueling, pushing minds and bodies to their limits and beyond. Carter watched as his soldiers learned to shape reality itself, their thoughts becoming weapons more potent than any fusion cannon. But a gnawing worry ate at him. Reese, the rest of Ghost Squadron. He could feel them out there, fragments scattered across dimensional boundaries. "We have to find them," Carter told Rana one cycle as they pored over sensor data. "They're the key to all of this. Anchors we can use to rally against the Blight." Rana nodded, her eyes glowing with newfound power. "Agreed. But to reach them, we'll have to push ourselves further than ever before." Carter felt it too, the pull of ascension, the promise of godlike power, tempered by the weight of responsibility. To find his friends, to face the coming storm, he would have to become something more than human, Then let's begin, he said. As Carter prepared himself for the arduous journey ahead, he failed to notice a dark thread weaving its way through the cosmic background. In the shattered husk of her former glory, Zora stirred. No longer merely obliterator, but entropy incarnate. She felt the pulse of Carter's nascent godhood and began to plot. The war for reality itself had only just begun.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.